What is up, everyone? Once again, it is your boy JuveyD coming at you with a renewed top 5 deck list. This was actually the first video I ever made about a little less than a month ago, and now that we're in patch 1.64, I think the meta's kind of changed and evolved. Players are starting to figure out what cards are really strong, what cards aren't so strong that they maybe thought were, so I decided it's time to update the list. Not only that, but this is a celebration because this is only my second month playing Duelyst, first full month really, and I just recently hit S rank, so as you probably noticed, I changed the title of my channel. So that's pretty exciting stuff. But without further ado, I want to go ahead and get into the list, and as always, the decks are linked below. Okay, so starting our list off at number 5 is an Aggro Lyonar deck. Now this one's kind of a little weird. The obvious strengths of Lyonar is that he has a ton of provoke units, so it's really easy to pin down your opponent, and with aggro being so popular in the meta right now, it's very beneficial to be able to just slap down a provoke unit and basically tell your opponent you have to deal with this or it's going to kill you eventually, especially with Divine Bond doing so much damage. Now I say that you play this more aggro than control or tempo because Divine Bond, Holy Immolation, and Tempest, and just all the units Lyonar has allows him to do a lot of damage in only a turn or two. So I think it's better to play it aggro. You want to stack those provokes up and try to get one to stick to the board so you can slap Divine Bond on it and wipe out your enemy quickly. The problem is, for an aggro deck, it doesn't have a lot of early damage, so that's kind of the limitation of this particular playstyle with Lyonar. Moving one spot up, we have a familiar face with Kasiva's Shadow Nova deck. Now, I've kind of already gone over this deck before, but just to reiterate, what makes this deck so strong is you kind of play it like a control deck, using your Bloodborne spell to eliminate enemy units, and then using some of your earlier drops to make sure that your opponent doesn't overwhelm you early on. All the while, you're stacking up shadow creep spaces, so once you get to late game, once you have 6 mana or more, you can start dropping Vorpal, Reaver, Spectral Revenant, and then of course your Shadow Nova, which will do a ton of damage to the enemy general and any units surrounding it immediately, so it's really easy to close games out. This deck has a very obvious win condition. The problem I have with this deck is that if you don't drop Shadow Nova, I mean, sure, you have some great legendary cards to drop later on, but it does get difficult to close games, in my opinion, if you don't have Shadow Nova, and it is a bit weak to early aggro, but otherwise, this deck can do a ton of damage. And now we have an unfamiliar face. Coming in at number 3 is the Mechmar deck. So with the introduction of Starhorn, the second Magmar general, everybody pretty much decided that Magmar was the best faction for Mechazor. And I think that I agree. The reason being, you don't have to put a whole lot of draw into this deck because your Bloodborne spell does that for you. I still have some Blazehounds in there to kind of help out, but other than that, what makes this deck so strong, besides the obvious 8/8 that you eventually drop in the game, is that it has a lot of removal, it has a lot of rush units, so it can do a lot of damage, and you're not relying on Mechazor to close the game for you. Because Sunset Paragon, Grove Keeper, and Crossbones, and a couple other cards are very obvious counters to Mechazor. But don't fear, if your Mechazor gets taken out as soon as you play it, you can still win with this deck. I've seen it a ton of times. The other disadvantage is that it is draw reliant. You will have games where you just can't draw those cheap Mechazor parts, but it is still pretty strong. Okay, so on my last video, a lot of you commented saying that I was very clearly an Abyssian main because I put 3 of the Abyssian legendary cards in my top 10 legendary card list. I haven't even played Abyssian more than 20 games this season. Nonetheless, I'm putting both Abyssian generals in my top 5 list, simply because I think those legendaries make this faction so strong. Once again, with Lilith ramp, you have an insane late game with Vorpal Reaver and Spectral Revenant. Rather than spamming shadow creep spaces though, you're kind of swarming the board with Wraithlings, and then using them to buff up a unit with Deathfire Crescendo, or Nether Summoning is also just a stupid card that you can slap in an Abyssian deck to regain control of the board and do a ton of damage to the enemy general. The only problem is the early game of this deck is very weak. All of your 2-drops are 2/2s or 1/1s. You don't have a single 2/3, which kind of sucks. And it has no provoke, so there's no way to pin down your opponent other than spamming Wraithlings. And then aggro kind of hurts it. But nonetheless, if you can get this deck to late game, you're probably gonna win. And last but not least, coming in at number 1, in my opinion, the best deck out there right now is a control Vetruvian deck. Now, a lot of people play Vetruvian as the quote-unquote face monkey, and basically what that means is you play in hyper aggro. You go face, you do a lot of damage. Some people run obelisks, and some people play all these crazy Vetruvian decks. I like control. I think control's by far the best, and it's what I climbed to S rank with. My justification is it has an answer to almost everything. You have 5 dispels in total. You have provokes. You have ways to get rid of provokes. You have ways to take over structures. You have a Sunset Paragon to kill things, and then you have 3 Aymara healers for late game, and then if those get taken care of and the enemy plays something stronger against you, you have a Dominate Will to take control of that enemy unit. And then you even have ways to get rid of artifacts. The win condition isn't always clear with this deck, but other than that, I think it is a dominant deck on the ladder right now. Thank you all so much for checking out my new top 5 deck list. As always, please leave a comment below if you disagree, if you agree. Tell me what you think about my list and what you would have included if you made a top 5 list. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you hate it and think I suck, as always, I guess you can give it a thumbs down. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can keep up with my future content. Follow me on Twitter. I promise I'll start streaming on Twitch soon, and then I have a Snapchat and Instagram if you're interested in that. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.